What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. Before we get into today's video, I want you guys to do me a favor. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Now we can break the YouTube algorithm and we can get this video out to more viewers. And if by the end of the video you find the information useful and or helpful, go ahead and hit that like button, turn on notifications so you know when I'm uploading new content like this. With all that being said, let's jump right into today's video.
What's going on, guys? So in this how-to video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to test a failed starter and or starter circuit. So most starting circuits are fairly easy. You got a key or a push button that will energize a relay, or in some cases there'll be a module. But for the most part, it'll energize a relay. When that relay energizes, it sends battery voltage to a terminal on the starter, which will allow the starter to engage. Now for most starters, you have two wires. You have the battery lug, which is going to come directly from the battery. And then you're going to have what they used to call an S terminal. We'll just keep calling it an S terminal for this video. That will energize the actual solenoid in the starter itself. And it'll push out the actual starter pinion part and engage a flex plate and or flywheel, depending on what kind of car you have. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook up a power probe to the S terminal. And we're going to see if it has power. If it does, then obviously you're going to have a failed starter. So this technique is going to work for most cars. It might not work for all of them because your starter may not be accessible. But as long as you can gain access to the starter and get to the two main lugs on the starter, which are going to be the battery lug and the S terminal, then this will work. So we're going to check for power first, coming from that main battery lug, and then we're going to check for power when you turn the key on and actually try to start it at the S terminal. So I'm going to go into the car, I'm going to show you what I'm going to be checking and where we're going to be at, and then we'll go from there. Alright guys, so there is the starter on this particular car. Like I said, the location of the starter is not going to be the same on every car, but this is going to be the car that we're working on. So I already unplugged the S terminal, and then your main battery lug is right here. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to get another camera so we can actually get up into this area a lot easier, and then we're going to go ahead and test these two wires to make sure they have power. One should have power at all times, and this one right here should only have power when you turn the key. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do to check the starter is we're going to check for power coming from going to the S terminal. This is going to be coming from the starter relay. So I'm going to bring up right now, I'm going to bring up the camera that is showing you the power probe, and we have the meter directly into the S terminal where it goes into the starter. Obviously we have it disconnected from the starter. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right now is put the key in the ignition. And I'm going to try and start it. And we should be seeing something come out of that S terminal. Obviously nothing is happening. Alright guys, so obviously we're not getting power to the S terminal. So in the case of this one, what we're going to go and do is we're going to pull the starter relay. Now on this starter relay, you should have power to two of the pins on the starter relay. You're going to have one that comes from the battery, or it comes from some power source. And you're going to have that's going to be attached to two separate lugs. And then from there, you're going to have the ground, which is going to be usually a control circuit. It's going to close the relay. And on the one that comes from the battery, it's going to be the load side. It's going to go ahead and close the contact and move from that port and go all the way down to the starter. So in this case, this is what our relay looks like on this particular car. Again, it's going to be different from every car, but this is what mine is on this car right here. And you do have a diagram here on the side that tells you what everything does. Now I have a relay buddy right here that I can plug into the relay. I can check the pins on each one, and that will let me know what's going on. So we should have power, like I said, on two. As long as the fuse is fine for the control side, then we should have power on two. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to resituate the camera. I'm going to show you where the fuse is at, or the relay's at, and we're going to use a power probe to check for two while the key is on, engine off obviously. We're going to make sure we have power on two separate lugs. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Alright guys, so there is the starter relay. I know it's kind of washed out. Just going to have to bear with me on this one because I'm sitting right in the sun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that I have power coming in this lug right here, which we do. And then this is the one that goes to the starter. If I can even get onto it. There we go. Obviously I don't think my power probe is strong enough to even do it. We got ground here. I'm going to move my hand out of the way so you guys can see. That is a constant ground. And then the next one over here should have power when I turn the key to the start position. Let's go ahead and try that real quick. And there is no power. Just for the sake of being sure, we're going to test the other side as well, just to make sure that it's not coming from this side. Let's try and keep it from being all washed up. See if we can block it off a little bit. Okay, and we're going to turn the key to the on position, and we have nothing. Okay, so for this car, there's not an actual ignition switch that we can actually test. The way this particular car works, and it's not going to be the same for every car. This is just particular to this car. If your car had an ignition switch, then obviously you're going to have to check the power from the switch to the relay. And in that case, you probably are not going to see any power from the ignition switch, and you're going to have a failed ignition switch. In this case, and other cars like it, what it actually works is it gets a signal from the key itself. There's going to be a module behind the key. When you turn the car to crank, it's going to send a signal to the body control module. What that body control module is going to go ahead and do is send data to the engine control module. And from the engine control module, it's going to send power to that relay, energizing the relay and allowing the truck to start. Or in this case, the car or the van, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to hook up the scan tool. I'm going to see if there's any fault codes for that particular circuit. And see maybe if we can see some live data, if we can see that the key is actually being triggered to crank. If we're not getting a signal from the key itself, that's obviously where our problem is going to lie. So let's go hook up a scan tool and see what we got. Alright guys, so we're looking at the live data right now in the body control module. So we're going to go ahead and turn the crank. And you can see we have a crank request. We have crank. And we release it. Goes back to run. Go to crank. Goes back to release it. So the body control module is seeing the request from the actual key itself. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go up to the engine control module and see if we have any PIDs for that as well. Alright guys, so we have the engine control module hooked up. And the first thing I see is our park neutral position switch is reading that we're in gear. So obviously if it's reading in gear, it's not going to allow the engine control module to send the signal because it's assuming that we're in the gear. Obviously we are in park, so we're not in gear. So let me go ahead and see where that comes from, whether the switch is internal or external, and then we'll go from there. So looking at the live data from the transmission control module, obviously it's showing that we are in park. When I go ahead and switch it, we're in reverse and neutral. So obviously that's reading the correct position. So let me go ahead and take a look at it one more time. Let me see if that range switch is maybe external, or maybe that reading is actually normal. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for this video. I'm not going to dig too deep into the ignition switch portion, or I mean the neutral safety switch part, because I know where it's located on this car, and I know it's a pain in the ass to actually test, and especially get it on camera. I would need to put the car on lift. But just for general checking as far as starters go, you're going to check a few items. You're going to check the ignition switch, you're going to check the relay, and you're going to check the starter. On the rare occasion, yes, you do have a neutral safety switch that will lock you out from starting the car. What that does is if it's reading that you're in reverse or you're in drive, it's going to keep you from starting the car. Some cars will have it on the shifter assembly itself. Others will have it integrated into the neutral or the range selector switch. Others will have a secondary switch on where the actual gear lever is by the tranny, and they'll have a switch that will allow you to test it externally. Like I said, I'm not going to dig too deep into that. I just want to do the basics of checking a starter. Yes, the neutral safety switch is a portion of the starter, but on more modern cars, it rarely ever fails. Most of the time, it ends up being the ignition switch, a key problem, or the starter itself. Alright guys, so that's going to go and do it for today's video. If you found something useful in today's video, go ahead and give this video a like and a share. And also, if you guys have any questions automotive related, you guys need wiring diagrams, second opinions, or just a tip on something, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I can respond to you guys via DM. Until I see you guys in the next video, you guys have a good one.